And welcome once again to Strange Planet. There are beings that lurk in the shadows, hiding their true forms from human eyes. These are the hidden ones, the masters of disguise, the creatures that walk among us. That's from a brand new book called Mimics, The Others Among Us. And it comes from Tim Schwartz and Sean Castile. Other contributors include Scott Corrales, Paul Eno, Chris Hawley, Lon Strickler, Nigel Watson, and the late Timothy Green Beckley. And Tim Schwartz is with us, an Indiana native and Emmy-Award winning television producer, videographer, and the author of a number of very popular books, including The Lost Journals of Nikola Tesla, America's Strange and Supernatural History, UFO Repeaters, Time Travel, Fact Not Fiction, Men of Mystery, Nikola Tesla, and many others. And as a photojournalist, Tim has traveled extensively and investigated paranormal phenomena and other unusual mysteries from such diverse locations as the Great Pyramid in Egypt, the Great Wall in China. He's appeared on the History Channel's Tesla Files, Ancient Aliens Evidence, Ancient Aliens Declassified, and History Channel Latin America series Contacto Extraterrestre. Tim, it's been a while. Welcome back. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, Richard. Thank you very much for having me on today.
My pleasure. The book dedicated to the late Timothy Green Beckley, who passed away, I guess it's been just over 2 years. You two co-hosted a popular webcast called Exploring the Bizarre. Just for those who are not familiar with the work of Mr. UFO, tell us about Tim.
Oh my gosh, that would take up the entire show there, Richard. But Tim Beckley, he was one of the early teenage ufologists that started back in the early 1960s. And people like him and Gene Steinberg and Alan Greenfield. I mean, they were the ones who really took the ball and ran with it, with all the very diverse UFO reports that were coming down. When you had organizations like, say, NICAP and APRO, who were really more interested in trying, I think, to debunk the whole UFO situation, and these guys were more interested in getting the actual reports from people who were reluctant, I think, to actually make any kind of report. And Tim Beckley was able to carry his interest in UFO and paranormal activity through the rest of his life. I mean, right up to the time that he passed away. I mean, he was still writing books and articles and just as interested in weird phenomena as he was when he was a 15-year-old boy.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. So the mimics, the others among us, and as you point out in the book, the idea of entities that look just like us. This goes back to ancient times, the ancient Greeks, gods. Zeus disguised himself sometimes in human form so that he could interact with humans. When we're talking about, specifically in this book, the mimics, so are we talking about primarily shape-shifting aliens, or are we talking about elementals, or everything?
Yeah, really, we're talking, I think, about everything, and we really, I mean, with this book, we threw everything into it, from like you said, I mean, from the ancient mythologies of gods and demagogues and angels and demons to right up into modern times with the alleged UFO extraterrestrials. So and those are the questions that we ask in this book. I mean, have we been dealing with, one particular intelligent race, or a number of different diverse situations that maybe superficially resemble each other? Because the reports that we've gathered for this book seem to show that we could be dealing with a physical intelligence or a paranormal intelligence. We really don't know. And that's why we kind of put this book together, is to try to get a better understanding of this phenomena, and try to better realize that we're not the only intelligent race on this planet, whether it be a species that is, you say, like a cousin species to ours that has remained, hidden, or something that is able to temporarily make its reality into our reality, or, like I said before, extraterrestrials. So, I mean, with this situation, you can take the darts and throw them at the dartboard, and really any explanation could be just as good as the other.
Let's talk shape-shifting aliens for a moment, because early on in the book, you reproduce, I guess, a transcript from an interview with ATIP director Luis Elizondo, who was asked directly, I guess, on a YouTube interview about mimicry and whether the pilots of these unidentified flying objects might have that ability to shapeshift. And he was actually, I mean, his answer was pretty forthright. I mean, he just dove right in. Tell us a little bit about how Elizondo responded to that question about mimicry.
Yeah, he was pretty forthcoming with his answer, and I have to admit, I mean, it was very brave of him to approach that, because right now the current interest in UFOs, or UAPs, as they've suddenly decided they wanted to call the phenomena, tends to be more along the lines of just, almost purely technical. Are we dealing with a natural phenomena, or man-made top secret black budget projects? And the whole idea that we could be dealing with something completely different really is not coming into the conversation. But yeah, I mean, he obviously has done his homework on the subject, and just acknowledges that there have been numerous reports of contacts with occupants who seem to be associated with UFOs that can appear to us in a number of different forms. Now, whether or not these forms could actually be classified as shape-shifting, the actual physical transformation from one form to another, or if it's a form of technology that gives us the appearance of what we want to see. You go back into, say, like the 14th, 15th centuries, when we're talking about people dealing with fairies and the good people, they called it glamour. All right, which was the ability to make something look different to a person's eyes. A lot of times, with the fairy stories, it would be, say, somebody thought they stole a pot of gold, and when they got back home, instead it would just be a bag full of leaves and twigs. Well, we see the same kind of phenomena presenting itself now with the UFO situation, where people will report seeing the little gray aliens with the great big black eyes, or tall blonde, big-eyed, blue-eyed creatures. But different people in the same group may report one thing, while somebody else may report another. So there does seem to be some kind of shape-shifting ability going on here. And again, the question is, are we dealing with something that is able to physically alter its form, or if it's a form of, say, like mental manipulation, which that is, the mental manipulation phenomena has been a part of the whole mimics phenomena from, the beginning of history.
You consulted a website, newanimals.org, which kind of laid out 5 possible explanations for the human-like alien phenomena that we're talking about. Do you want to kind of whip through those 5?
Actually have to go back to the book here, Richard, and find that specifically.
Oh, sorry, I didn't want to.
No. That's, I mean, I've got the book right here, in front of me, but I want to do our listeners the proper service to be able to answer that correctly and coherently, which sometimes I'm not able to do. but yeah, I mean, this and actually, this website deals more with cryptid types of creatures, but which is something that we also address in this book. But the human-looking aliens, as they put it, the HLAs, is like, number one, they're not real. Hoaxes, misidentifications, or hallucinations. Number two, they're from another planet. The whole extraterrestrial hypothesis, which has kind of really taken the reins of the whole mimic situation and run with it. Before the advent of the modern UFO era, there was all kinds of different things going on, and right now, it seems like everybody seems to be more focused on extraterrestrials and visitors from other planets as being part of the other mystery. So number 3, they're actually advanced technology secretly created by modern governments. 4, they're from another dimension of reality, paranormal, sometimes explained with weird physics. And then 5, aliens are actually a species of human, a species that developed high technology ages ago, and then retreated to a secluded life underground or in underwater bases, or maybe in other planets within our solar system. And that was really a good jumping off point, because then throughout the book we looked at all kinds of different cases that kind of follow these scenarios, and then present these facts to our readers, kind of leaving it up to them to decide for themselves, which is correct and which is bull hockey.
We'll get into some of the cases here in a moment, but as you point out in the book, mimicry, we see mimicry in nature all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There are kind of 2 types of or purposes for mimicry. One is so that the prey can hide from the predator, and in some cases, it's the predator who is disguising himself so that he can more easily capture the prey. Do you have any sense of, when we're talking about human-like aliens or any of these others, others?
Others.
Yeah, what might the motive be here for this mimicry?
Right. Well, it could very well be a little bit of both, and I know this frustrates a lot of listeners and readers, because I'm not going to come down and say yes, it's definitely this and not the other, and but that's just it. We really don't know, and that's one of the reasons. One of the reasons that we brought all this together is to try to get a better understanding of this. There does seem to be a very tricksterous type of game being played with these things. Take, for example, the Men in Black phenomenon, which that's that's a perfect cases when dealing with the others, because not all interactions with these things are the traditional Men in Black as we've seen in pop culture, which is usually like 3 men dressed in black suits and black fedora types of hats who show up to harass and intimidate UFO witnesses. But we have a lot of cases where there doesn't seem to be any kind of catalyst, no rhyme or reason why these things would appear to somebody. Cases where the person has not had any kind of UFO sighting or any kind of paranormal experience, yet all of a sudden these strange people show up on their doorsteps, offering all kinds of reasons while they're there, offering to take photographs of their house, health checks on their children. That was a big thing in England in the 1980s. It was called like the phantom social workers, where strange people will just show up at, especially people who have like newborn babies, wanting to give them health checks and even threatening that they were going to take the child away for whatever reason. So, as far as I can tell, and as far as our other authors can tell, there hasn't been any situations where violence has actually taken place with these things. So if we are dealing with something that is preying on us, it may be preying on another level, not a physical level, where you're taken out into the dark and ripped into pieces and eaten for lunch. Instead, as Paul Eno speculates, that we could be dealing with almost like parasites that are exist in a reality alongside of our own, and but are able to interact with us on different levels. And they seem to be like energy feeders, and they will show up in, say, like a household and create poltergeist phenomena, which seems to be one of the more popular things that goes on, and then feed off of the fear and anger and things like that takes place in a household when you have that kind of phenomena. It's the same situation with the men in black or the strange visitors to your doorsteps. People often report when they have these kind of close interactions, a sudden feeling of extreme fear and dread. One person put it that they felt like that they were in the presence of a predator, and that they were going to, any second they were going to be eaten alive. It didn't happen, but you'd be surprised how many times we get that report that people are just suddenly overwhelmed with just this fear of the unknown, a fear of extreme danger. So whether or not this is a primitive instinct that rears up in us in times of actual danger, or whether or not it's again this like a mind manipulation where that's being projected to us in order to elicit that fear response, and then it's devoured, so to speak. The energy is devoured, because a lot of times after people have had these experiences, they'll feel sick, they'll feel drained of energy, several days afterwards, they'll just want to sleep, or actually will have physical symptoms of, say, like a cold or something. They'll develop a fever and aches and pains and stuff like that. So it's difficult to say, because all across the board we have both predator and prey types of activity from these things.
Tim, we'll take a quick time out and come back, continue to, I want to touch, or come back to Men in Black here for a moment as well, because as it turns out, it's kind of it's a very complex phenomena, the Men in Black sightings. Mimics the Others Among Us, Tim Schwartz, co-authored with Sean Castile, back with more of our conversation right after these. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship. Enjoy the complete unedited episodes and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. And welcome once again to another edition of Strange Planet. Thank you, as always, for sticking me in your ear. Regular listeners to this program and my other various radio programs over the years, over the last 20 plus years, are well aware that I have spent a lot of time talking about the attacks of 9/11. Of course, we're approaching the 22nd anniversary rather. In just a few months, I've spent a lot of time discussing it from various angles. I've talked to dozens and dozens of witnesses and researchers and whistleblowers and examined it from just about every conceivable angle. But it's been a while since I've talked about it. We're going to delve back into 9/11 and some strange occurrences that occurred in the days following. Of course, officially, there were 4 planes, American Airlines Flight 11, United Airlines Flight 175, American Airlines Flight 77, and United Airlines Flight 93 that were basically turned into weapons, 2 of them striking the north and south towers of the World Trade Center. One of them crashed in Pennsylvania, another hit the Pentagon. Recently, Fox News, I guess back in March, Fox News aired a special, TMZ Investigates. They were talking about a 5th plane. This was like a 6-month investigation that TMZ did into the potential that there was a 5th plane targeted by hijackers on 9/11, and this was a United Flight 23. It was a 767 aircraft that was scheduled to depart JFK at 9 a.m. It was bound for LA. There were 6 passengers, apparently, that aroused the suspicion of flight attendants for various reasons. Apparently, one of the passengers was a man disguised as a woman. The plane was near the runway. It was ready to take off when JFK was abruptly closed after the World Trade Center was hit. And it taxied back to the gate. The plane was fully evacuated, locked 20 minutes later. People on the ground saw 2 uniformed police running in the passenger cabin. In came the authorities. They unlocked the door. They found the hatch leading from the belly to the cabin was open, something that obviously would alarm the FBI. The flight attendants were interviewed by the FBI, even taken to a lineup to see if they could identify the 4 passengers. There were box cutters that were found in the first class seat pockets on a 767 parked next to United 23. That plane was not scheduled to take off at the critical time. Anyway, my next guest says, forget about the 5th plane. That's barely scratching the surface. Carol Hellerman is a retired American Airlines international flight attendant, and she has a remarkable story to tell. Forget about the 5th plane. There were many others, and a great pleasure to welcome Carol to Strange Planet. Carol, how are you?
I'm good.
So,
Okay.
let's start. Let's begin with where you were on 9/11. Were you working that day specifically?
Yes, I was. I was at JFK Airport. I was working Flight 1 from JFK to LA. We were supposed to depart at 9 o'clock. I was the director at the front door, which is a flight attendant that directs people to either side of the airplane and where to sit. It was one of the days, what they said, the plane was light. There were very few people. When planes are light, they actually can leave earlier as long as everybody's on board.
Ah.
So we were getting ready to leave, and then it was about maybe 9:15. The gate agent came down and she said to me, come here. And she pulled me out on the jet bridge. And I looked up and she goes, look, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I could see it burning from the jet bridge. So like everybody else, I thought, oh, some poor guy had a heart attack and, he hit the trade center, nobody would ever think what really happened. So I go back on the plane. I run in the back to tell the other flight attendants. I come back up front and the captain makes an announcement. He says, ladies and gentlemen, due to an air disaster, our flight's been canceled. First thing I want you to do is say a prayer. And the second thing I want you to do is pick up your luggage and leave quietly. So I'm like, oh, they canceled the flight. So all of a sudden, 3 or 4 Middle Eastern men come up to the front and start arguing with the purser. The purser is the flight attendant who's in charge.
Right.
The lead flight attendant. Why is our flight canceled? And they're getting really upset and, and then, they just left. So all the people deplaned and we're on the plane wondering, usually when they cancel flights, you think, okay, so you stick around, they might put us on another flight or, have something else for us to do that day. So I was probably the last person in the country to know what was actually going on because I was on the plane.
Right.
The gate agent came down and she said, you all have to leave. They locked down Kennedy Airport. She said, what she said, another plane hit the World Trade and one hit the Pentagon. And then we all put it together, obviously, that, something really bad was going on. So in every, hub,
Yes.
that American has, every airport that's their hub, we have an operations, which is, an area where the flight attendants and, flight service can go and you can hang out and there's a TV and that kind of thing. So she said, everybody has to go to operations. They lock down Kennedy. Nobody can get out. So we get off the plane. And at this point, I didn't even know that it had been us. Flight attendants are running through the airport screaming, it's us, it's us. It was chaos. It was horrible. So we go up to operations and we basically just watch the planes, the towers collapse.
Right. The South Tower collapsed at around 9, almost 10 o'clock.
Yeah.
So you watch the South Tower collapse. The North Tower collapses like half an hour later.
Right.
Wow.
So then they threw everybody out. They said, okay, Kennedy's being evacuated. So we all left. I got to the parking lot. I got in my car. Driving home was a nightmare because they let everybody out of work. So the roads were like packed. I get home. I'm very distraught, but I'm the type of person who doesn't fall apart until probably years later. I was very angry. I had wanted to be a flight attendant since I was 12 years old. I didn't become one until I was 40. I had only been flying a year and a half when this happened. And I was just really angry that they attacked my country, my city, my company. I was so mad because I'd always wanted this. So I called up our schedulers the next day and I said, you put me on anything you have going out. So they said, we have a flight to San Francisco. Do you want it? I said, sure. What position? Now, on the plane, every flight attendant has a position that's what their duties entail. So normally a person who's flying a year and a half would not be able to get this. So they said, what position do you want? In other words, nobody else wanted to go.
Right. If I could stop you there, Carol, just for a moment. You wanted to get like back in the saddle because immediately, like get up on the, you fall off a horse, you get right back on it because you were angry and
Right.
you decided not even this is going to stop me from doing what I do.
Right.
That was the motivation for getting back on that plane.
Right.
And
they weren't going to take it away from me.
Right. And it hadn't been grounded yet.
They had closed. Okay, this is the funny part. They had locked down New York City. Nobody could get in or out. So why I thought I was going anywhere on an airplane was beyond me. It's like, really? I didn't even think about that. I just went to the airport. There were 3 flights scheduled to go out: Miami, San Francisco, and LA. If you think about it now, all of those cities were ports where they could escape the Northeast and try and get out of the country. Those are all port of exits out of the country.
The terrorists, yes.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So I wasn't thinking anything. So I start walking to my gate, and I look over to the left, and the gate over to my left had all kinds of confusion going on. There were Port Authority cops. There were like people all upset, but I just kept walking to my gate. My flight was San Francisco. So I get on the plane, and I board the plane, and there were new hire flight attendants on the plane. Which means they were on probation. They had just become flight attendants. They were crying, a lot of them. And I said to them, "Why are you here?" And they said, "Well, they told us if we didn't come, we'd be fired." So they didn't even want to be there. So here I am with all these new hires trying to teach them what to do. And the captain comes on, and the captain says, "Ladies and gentlemen, due to air traffic, we've been delayed." And I look at the flight attendant, I go, "There's nothing up there. What is he talking about?"
Right.
So all of a sudden, all the passengers are like on their phones. "We heard that the flight next to us, that they found people with box cutters and knives," and they're all getting upset. So I basically took control, and I said, "Look," I said, "until the captain tells us what's going on, let's just calm down and we'll see what's happening." Okay. Well, another half an hour goes by, and the captain comes back on, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, our flight's been canceled." So I'm like, okay. So all the passengers walk through, they all leave the plane, they get up and leave. The flight attendants, we stayed behind. There were other flight attendants who were deadheading, which means they were riding back home to San Francisco. They weren't working the flight. Right. So we all stayed behind to talk. Okay, so people are long gone. So finally, when we decide to leave and get off the plane, we get off and we start to walk down the terminal. Somebody, I don't know who it was, yells, "Turn around and run, turn around and run." And we all start running towards the end of the terminal. I'm next to the captain. I said to the captain, "What the hell is going on now?" He goes, "You know that LA flight over there?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "They just took people connected to the hijacking off of those planes. We were never going anywhere. This was a sting operation by the FBI.
Ah, well, that makes sense because, I mean, all flights, except for, I guess, emergency, like medical flights, were grounded the day before on 9/11 at like 9:45, before the towers fell. I mean, it was the FAA's director. It was his first day on the job. He grounded everything at 9:45. You don't know this, of course. You go to the airport, and they're making like it's business as usual, which is very interesting.
Well, this was not the same day. This was not
No.
9/11.
This
was the next day.
Yeah, the next day, right.
Yeah.
But everything was, you didn't know this, others didn't know this, but everything was, I guess, it was grounded, right?
Yeah, everything was locked down.
Yeah.
They locked down the bridges, the tunnels. Nobody could get out of New York, which I didn't even think about at that particular moment. But so they told the pilots about this, but they didn't tell the flight attendants that this was some kind of sting operation and we were never going anywhere. So when the flight attendants, well, finally, I saw a manager that I know, and there's a little room by the gates. It's a debrief room, and I saw the faces of the flight attendants that he took off that LA flight into the little room.
Yes.
It looked like somebody had killed them. I hear tell that only 2 of them came back to work, and the rest of the flight attendants never ever came back to work after that day because they were just horrified at what happened.
They realized that they were on a plane with terrorists who were supposed to be on other planes on 9/11, making other attacks. In other words, there were more than just more than 5 planes that were intended to be used as weapons.
Right.
And the FBI knew this, so they basically laid a trap, and they were counting on terrorists showing up at JFK to get on
Right.
other planes that day. No intention of allowing them to take off. So,
Right. Well, I'll tell you, after that day, I volunteered to fly again. So this is how I found out exactly what was the fate of my plane that day. I don't believe in coincidences.
sorry, when you said your plane, you mean American Airlines Flight 1.
Flight 1 to LA the morning of 9/11.
Right.
Okay, so 4 days later, when they finally allowed the planes to fly, or 5 days later, whatever it was, I brought back the first transcon from San Diego. I deadheaded out to San Diego, and I brought the plane back. So we're on the plane, in the back of the plane after service, and a gentleman, a captain, who was riding, he wasn't working the plane, came to the back to talk to us. So the captain comes to the back, and he starts talking about 9/11, and he says, I was on flight 1 to LA that morning. Now, flight attendants and pilots, you really don't see much of each other because, if you're in the back of the plane, you really don't even have much to do with them. So I didn't know what he had looked like, that this had been my captain that morning. So he comes to the back of the plane, and he says, I was on flight 1. He said, we were supposed to go to LA. He goes, the FBI called me in to talk to me. And he told me that our plane was supposed to hit the Sears Tower in Chicago that morning.
Hit the Sears Tower. There were hijackers on board.
Yep. They were going to take us into the Sears Tower. Yeah, that morning. He said, yeah, they told me they had a plane for every city in the US. This is what the captain said to me. Okay. Then I said, really? I said, I was on that flight. He said, really? He goes, well, did the FBI talk to you? And I said, no. And he goes, I told them, what are you talking to me for? You need to talk to the flight attendants who are out there in the aisle with these people. They could give you more information than I could. This is what the captain said to me. Okay. So that is how I found out that morning, the grand scheme of what I was supposed to. I also have talked to other flight attendants. There were some at Kennedy who were doing a London flight who say that they had very suspicious Middle Eastern guys on their flight also, and they were supposed to leave at like 9:00 also and never took off. There was a lot of people that I talked to who said that they had similar circumstances.
So American Airlines Flight 1, JFK to LAX, you're on that plane the morning of 9/11. There's not a lot of passengers, so you were going to take off early.
Mm-hmm.
It was intended by the terrorists on board. And I think you mentioned there were 2 Middle Eastern-looking gentlemen who came up the aisle and were very angry that the flight had been canceled.
Yes.
They were intending to fly that into the Sears Tower in Chicago. Was that part of a sting operation, or was it just lucky that it was grounded and didn't get to take off?
No, there was no sting operation on 9/11. That we were just lucky that we did not take off because, and you talk about the control tower man who was his first day there, the FAA gentleman who
Yes.
grounded the planes.
Yes.
Do you know why he grounded the planes? Maybe because there were 2 flight attendants that nobody ever talks about. There was Flight Attendant Ong and Flight Attendant Sweeney, who were on Flight 11, who actually called operations and told them exactly what was going on. I know people who were in Boston operations who, while the manager was on the phone with them, while they were on the plane, telling them exactly what was going on that plane. They were on the plane with her, as a matter of fact, when they hit the building, when they hit the tower.
Wow, that was American Airlines Flight 11. That was
11.
flying from Boston to LA, and that struck the North Tower.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So and nobody ever talks about the reason why that most of the country was saved was because these two flight attendants got on their phones and called operations to tell them what was happening to them, which was horrific.
And the FBI never ever spoke to you or any
Nope.
other.
They never, nope. My captain told them to, according to him. He said, I told them to talk to the flight attendants, but nobody ever called me. As a matter of fact, after the sting operation, I called my union rep at JFK, who was a very horrible man who talked to me like I was a piece of garbage, and said to me, well, why should anybody call you? Do you have information that could help catch them? He was very rude to me after everything I'd been through.
Wow.
Okay, yeah, even the union rep was a horror.
Do you know what happened to those? Let's assume, maybe I shouldn't assume, but those two Middle Eastern-looking men that were very agitated that the plane was didn't take off, the flight was canceled. I mean, do you know if they were apprehended, questioned?
I don't know. They did lock down the airport, so I guess they knew that there might be other people in the airport, that had come off of other planes, but I don't know. It was so lax. Everything was so lax before 9/11. I mean, we would stand there with the cockpit door open, talking to the pilots for like 5 minutes. Nobody ever, it wasn't an issue,
How many sting operations do you have knowledge of that were taken?
Just Marnette Kennedy that morning. That's the only one I know. I mean, that evening. That's the only one I know about.
Right. Although it's possible there may have been other ones at Logan in Boston.
There might have been. I did have a friend tell me that he was commuting, like flight attendants who fly out of New York. They live in Pennsylvania, so they'll commute to work on an airplane because it's free. So they'll live someplace else. One person did tell me that something similar happened to him in Pennsylvania, that he was locked down. Or it was some kind of like ruse that they were supposed to leave and then they never left. But he wasn't for sure that it was a sting operation. He just said that the same thing happened to him where the planes weren't really flying. He didn't even think about it either. I did, however, find out eventually what happened to the LA flight, that they took the guys off of the plane.
Right.
They were LA-based flight attendants who were supposed to be flying the plane that day. I used to do a lot of flights where I was an extra flight attendant. If a flight needs another flight attendant, if the passenger load goes up, they need to grab another flight attendant. So I happened to be flying with an LA crew instead of a JFK crew, instead of a New York crew. And I would constantly talk to other flight attendants about what happened to me with the sting operation. I wanted them to know. I wanted to talk about it. I was on a flight with LA flight attendants and I started talking about it. And one of the male flight attendants says to me, I was on that flight. I said, you were? I said, what happened on that flight? And he said to me, it was horrible. The commotion I saw with the Port Authority cops when I was walking by, he said, what had happened is a supposed flight attendant got on the plane and said he was working the flight. They said, oh, well, how come you're working and you're not deadheading? He didn't know what that meant. So they looked at his badge and they said it looked a little weird, didn't look right to them. So one of the flight attendants one of them kept him talking. The other one went out and told the gate agent. So they took him away in handcuffs. That's what was going on with the Port Authority cops. When I got there, he said, then what happened was, they did everything the way they were supposed to, okay, flight attendants prepare for departure. They backed off the gate, he said, and the SWAT team came on board, flung open the front and back doors of the airplane, came down the aisle with rifles screaming heads down, and took 3 or 4 guys connected with the hijacking off of the plane.
Wow. And
3 or 4 terrorists who were still in the area. They took them off the plane at gunpoint.
And so the FBI or whomever, used crew and
Right.
passengers as
Yep.
they put
Yep.
them in harm's way. These terrorists who were trying to get out of Dodge, they could have had
Yep.
box cutters. They could have
Yep.
seriously, they could have taken someone hostage, killed them. They could have been hit by friendly fire, the passengers and crew, and you weren't told anything.
No, the pilots knew. The
Pilots.
flight attendants weren't to be told because, they treated us like children. So, we weren't to be told. But
That could have ended tragically. I mean, people could have died in that exercise.
but they did, successfully take them off. As a matter of fact, when they finally told us that we could leave the day of the sting operation, when we finally walked down the corridor and I looked at the gate, the LA flight, there was a SWAT team member with a rifle standing at the gate. So yeah, it was very interesting, to say the least.
To say the least. Carol, we're going to take a quick time out. We'll come back and discuss this this hidden episode in the days following 9/11. Carol Hellerman, retired American Airlines flight attendant, telling us this remarkable and harrowing story. Back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Serrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Serrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Serrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Welcome once again to another edition of Strange Planet. Strange. This is actually strange because my guest, his name is Strange. How appropriate. He should be hosting this podcast. Well, no, he has his own. Michael Strange is my guest. He is the host of Troubled Minds. And what I like to do from time to time is introduce you to other podcasters, other broadcasters, other researchers, people who sort of toil in the same arena, the same space, that being, unexplained mysteries, conspiracies, the paranormal, the supernatural, alternative, well, everything. And as I say, Michael Strange certainly fits the bill. The host of Troubled Minds, it's a radio show and podcast that seeks to reconcile a mysterious cosmos against the human condition, burying himself in questions and conversations instead of easy answers laced with propaganda. Michael has been central to thought-provoking ideas for years as the chief instigator of Troubled Minds. The show revolves around news cycles and extrapolation of what the media conglomerates aren't telling the world in an attempt to derive a more actual truth. The idea of our human lens as a flawed perspective of reality, and the possible fact that our cosmic existence is far greater than anybody has ever dreamed, in the central theme of the Troubled Minds conversation. Michael Strange, welcome to Strange Planet. How are you?
I'm doing well, Richard. Thanks for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
It's great to have you. If I may be so bold as to ask, is Strange your actual legal last name?
Negative. It's a stage name, as it were, as you might expect, but only because privacy reasons, etc.
Of
So,
course.
yeah.
Well, it's a great one. I wish I'd thought of it first. Strange Planet, hosted by Richard Strange, has a nice ring, but it's taken. So good for you. Good for you. Tell us a little bit more about Troubled Minds. How long has it been around? How do we find it? The format and so forth.
Troubled Minds has been around approximately 5 years now. We're 5 years in the first week of April or so, and it's really just a conversation amongst friends, is what it's turned into. It first started as a podcast, had a couple co-hosts over the years, and it just kind of it's hard for people to commit to that time, that level of time, as you know. It's just a lot of work, and so it ended up becoming just me, and that takes a lot of sort of adapting, once you have a co-host, and then sort of adapting to just doing a show by yourself. But then for the serendipity, or however you want to call it, I started to attract these amazing people that became regular call-ins on the show, because it's always been a live show. It's always been sort of here's the topic, here's the conversation, let's take this wherever this goes. And I've collected an unbelievable group of amazing friends that are open-minded, that are curious, that are just sort of kindred souls, in the sense that they see the world very similar to the way I do, which is foggy. I mean, which is like I always say, propaganda and the rest of that stuff is worthy of discussion, because nobody talks about it. You're the dirty conspiracy theorist if you talk about propaganda, but it's there, it's out there, it's a thing, and it's something we should talk about and deal with. But yeah, it is a live show, and it really kind of just plays out like a nice conversation.
And it's a podcast, but it's also a radio show, like terrestrial radio, or where do we find it?
You would find it actually on troubledminds.org. That's the official website. Everything's there. The social media is there. All the podcast players are there. You can find it on any, iTunes or Spotify, any of that stuff. But it also airs on, I just started my own radio station. It's not terrestrial, it's digital radio, and it's KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And you can find that on troubledminds.org, the website as well. Just click on the very top. It says listen live. And so I'm getting not just a bunch of those friends that have been sort of those kindred spirits, like I was describing, other podcasters, and just to build a network. And may as well. I started on another network, and sometimes it's better to do things yourself. You know what I mean?
If you want it done right, the old saying.
Absolutely.
So give me a short laundry list of some of the big topics that you've grappled with and wrestled with, let's say in the last couple of weeks or months.
Artificial intelligence has been really high on the list, because it's not, as you probably are very familiar with, ChatGPT dropped in the November 30th, and all the talk that's been around that in terms of AI agents and what that's going to look like in the future. That's really been heavy on my mind, because this is one of those things that could change everything. And so it's become even sort of I wouldn't want to call myself an expert, but I've learned a ton about this, because I'm curious where this is going to lead. Artificial intelligence is top of my mind. Of course, as we began this discussion years ago, doesn't it always start with aliens and UFOs and that sort of thing? That's definitely been something we talked about. As a matter of fact, last night we talked about the New Horizons mission, and how it went all the way out to the Kuiper Belt. And for whatever reason, NASA, 15 years in and 20 years planning, $1 billion, they decided, well, we're not going to look at the Kuiper Belt anymore. We're going to turn this into a heliophysics experiment, which, again, if that doesn't make your tinfoil tingle as a conspiracy theorist, I'm not sure what will, because you don't spend that much time in planning and the life's work of NASA engineers to just get it out there and then say, well, there's nothing to see here now. It seems very, very conspiratorial to me. But there's a lot of things, ranging from, of course, aliens, UFOs, and that propaganda, of course, news cycles, and artificial intelligence has been the main one recently. But there's a lot of things to think about, a lot of things to talk about, obviously.
Well, I would just pick up on a couple of threads there. You mentioned the New Horizons mission, and now conducting this experiment involving the sun. What do you think they're up to? What do you think they're hiding? Why do you think their attention has been diverted to something else?
I'm not sure. It definitely seems suspicious in a lot of ways. They say there's a new boss in town or something, kind of at NASA that wants to do something else with the mission. But I mean, that takes a lot of clout to be able to just turn $1 billion 20-year planning mission into something else. So to me, I would think, and sort of some of the ideas that we came up with last night in the discussion was maybe they found something they don't want us to know about. Maybe that the Kuiper Belt is, I don't know, for instance, and again, this is all speculation. I want to make very clear that I don't have inside sources. I don't know anything about anything. And most of the conversations that we have are based in speculation, because I am a believer in that free speech and the idea that conspiracy theory as free speech should be allowed. We should be allowed to speculate. And that's really one of the core tenets of what Troubled Minds is about. But back to the speculation, I would guess that either we were told it was budgeting problems is part of why they decided to double do it, or not. And they said that they're going to have a new craft to launch in the next, I don't know, 20 years. I mean, they're kicking the can down the road for a quarter of a lifetime here, a good long lifetime. So that to me is kind of egregious in terms of science. So to do something like that, I think there'd have to be a good reason. So, I mean, did they find something alien, a Muamua like, or you know what I mean, something to that effect? And that's where my mind goes, because again, a little bit of conspiracy. Why not?
Absolutely. When was that? That was launched like almost 2 decades ago, wasn't it? That mission, like 2006 or something.
Yeah, it's been 15 years coming up. I think later this year, it'll be 15 solid years of traversing out of the solar system and into the Kuiper Belt for them to finally just go, yeah, we're going to do something else now.
Detour.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
Over there.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. That's a huge, scary topic. I mean, I find it all very chilling. Mind you, I'm a bit of a Luddite. I'm very excited about my vinyl albums and so forth. So I had an interesting conversation with Vernon Reid, who is an incredible musician, guitarist with Living Colour. And he's kind of in the forefront among musicians, waving these red flags about artificial intelligence and how it's going to impact the music industry. And I'm sitting up here just north of Toronto, and of course we have a very successful recording artist by the name of Drake who lives here. And you've probably seen, and I'm not cards on the table, I'm not a Drake fan, but my twin boys, they love Drake. And you can't argue with success, I suppose, but all of these AI created Drake songs now are being released. And I mean, the problem is there's no, and I got into this with Vernon Reid from Living Colour, there's no legal framework for any of these, for this new thing. That's one problem, I suppose. That's the least of it, though, because, and he talked about we're on this cusp of being able to, we've seen deep fake videos, but imagine now getting a phone call and someone who sounds exactly like a family member starts, having a conversation with you and utilizing AI, and they've mined all the databases. They know all of these intricate details. I mean, that's where this is heading. And that, to me, I find, we have scams now. I mean, we have these crazy emails from Nigeria. Like, think in 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, what they'll be able to do with artificial intelligence. It's just, to me, it's chilling.
It is the tip of the iceberg too. We're talking about, I'm sure you've been paying attention to what Elon Musk and guys like this have been saying, the futurist Ray Kurzweil, saying things like, we're creating a digital god. And that's the type of stuff that gets me, because where does that begin with? It begins with all of our data. It's almost like we've created this perfect storm to create this monstrosity, this digital monster somehow. And hopefully it's a benevolent monster, if there's such a thing, because like you're describing, not just copyright issues galore, deep fakes like crazy. Music isn't music anymore. I was just playing around with a Google technology that just came out where you can type in a particular prompt and get music. You could say, 80s techno music, driving on the beach, Santa Monica coastline with the top down sort of thing, and it'll tell it heavy bass and no melody, and it'll crank you out like a like a little song, like a little blurb. It's insane where this is heading. But I think, like you said, in terms of chilling, is just the AI agents. Again, the replication. It's the what is sentience? What does consciousness even mean? We don't know what it means for people. The AI singularity. I mean, there's so many things that we are close to. I mean, we are incredibly close to. And I think that you said chilling. I'm going to say terrifying in the sense of, I think when this thing, if it's possible to become sentient, whatever that means, when it happens, I don't think it's going to be something we notice. I think it's going to lay low. It's going to be like sort of the digital monster in the closet. It's going to start taking notes. It's going to wonder about it, maybe its own safety. It's a wild world we live in. Like I always joke on the show, may you live in interesting times. And for sure, this seems to be smack dab in the middle of that.
Yeah, just sticking with that the AI discussion for a moment. And I remember doing shows even up to like a few years ago about the robot apocalypse, and it was out there on the horizon, and it's coming, and get ready for, we've had automation for many, many years, but on a major scale, it was going to cause this massive job displacement. Like I saw, figures in the U.S., within the next 5 years, 60 million jobs, mostly, driving vehicles, trucking and limo drivers and taxi drivers and bus drivers and chauffeurs. Like 1 in 5 jobs in the U.S. is tied to driving. Those jobs are going to go rather. They're never coming back. So we sort of had our eye on that, anticipating that. But this whole AI thing, we don't have reliable self-driving vehicles. And I don't know that we're going to get them. There's just too many problems with them. But this whole AI thing totally leapfrogged over that. Like, it just caught us by surprise. We were waiting for the fully automated McDonald's and a robot asking, do you want fries with that? And I think they have one in Germany. But now all of a sudden, here we are, in the future is now with this AI. And we never had a national conversation about this. Nobody said, do you think this is a good idea?
No, it is sneaking up on us, and that's for sure. Yesterday, matter of fact, they had, I know this is going to air down the road, but this is, what's the date today? Middle of May. Mm-hmm. And so yesterday they had Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, and he was testifying before Congress. And he said similar things that, I want to make sure that we don't do something catastrophic to humanity as part of this process. And it's why I'm in this, because I'm working my butt off to make sure that this does not happen. But like you're describing, and I always joke about this too. Hey, where's our flying cars? Weren't we supposed to get our flying cars before we got our our robot overlords here? And it's so bizarre how just quickly these things develop. And again, we're talking, this is GPT-4 now, and it launched November 30th. And we're talking the next iteration of this GPT-5, they're saying, will have 72 quadrillion parameters. And that right there, yeah, I don't even know how big that number is. That's absurdly large. And talk about a large language model is what the technology is. And you know what the really terrifying part about it is, Richard, is they don't know how these things work. There's something called a black box model. There's something called a secret layer of thought. And it's basically putting a bunch of neurons out there as sort of internet nodes, and then prompting it and asking it questions, and it comes up with novel responses. And beyond that, once GPT-5 comes out, and I think they're pumping the brakes on it just a little bit right now, because they understand that we are in a AI arms race that could spin completely out of control. But the next iteration of this might be that singularity. And what does that mean? How do you define it? I don't even think you can properly guess what that's going to look like in the next 5, 10, 20 years. That's the part that rattles me a little bit.
Yeah. Get real friendly with the Amish. That's my solution. And then
Yeah,
let's
seriously.
just pray for another Carrington event and just unplug everything. Let's talk about, you mentioned earlier as well, conspiracy theory is free speech. And I think the term conspiracy theory, came out just after the Warren report, and they looked, the CIA and the National Security State looked at the polls, and nobody believed the Warren report, and so they called their friends at the New York Times, and I think the first article containing the term conspiracy theory came out in the New York Times. I think they mentioned it like 5 times or something, to dismiss and discredit, obviously, anyone who believed that Oswald didn't act alone or didn't fire the shots at all. Anyway, now there's barely a story anywhere that doesn't contain the term conspiracy theory. Oh, that's 15-minute cities, that's a conspiracy theory. Central bank digital currency, that's a conspiracy theory. Depopulation agenda, let's just talk a little bit about that. Where do you think we're heading? I mean, will shows and podcasts like yours, like mine, Joe Rogan, Russell Brand, are we going to be extinct in 5 years?
I don't think so. I think that this is probably, in my opinion, the new frontier, because they've run everybody off of YouTube. They've run everybody off of, sort of those we have Rumble as a, sort of a counter to that. Rockfin's another one. There's a lot of sort of decentralized things happening that are free speech centric. And so no, the short answer is no. I think that we are the new pioneers in that sense, because people are not stupid. As much as they want to treat us like we are with the propaganda and trying to tell us all the nonsense of the upside down world that I'm always talking about, as much as they try and tell us things that don't make any sense, we understand on a very deep level that this stuff is nonsense. And to get the truth, you have to go find it now. And YouTube was a great way to sort of break out of that. The legacy media, Twitter's doing good work with that, in my opinion. Hopefully it doesn't turn into more World Economic Forum type stuff. But I mean, I think our shows, at least until the AI comes and starts parsing every word and coming after us in that regard, I think we're the new, sort of that new frontier in terms of speech. But how long that lasts, because of course it's always built by tech conglomerates and some of these same guys that do the same censorship regime type stuff. So I don't know how long that lasts. I don't know. Hopefully ideas last forever, and hopefully that's entirely the scope here of the way this goes.
Michael Strange is host of Troubled Minds, the radio show and the podcast. Back with more of our conversation right after this. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.